guest is here because she is Miss Wisconsin, but she's also here to share a very personal story about her brother Tyler, who was addicted to methamphetamine and died by suicide when he was 18.
That's right. Her platform is about the impact of substance abuse on the family, and it's called Tyler's Legacy. The Red Ribbon Campaign is the nation's oldest and largest drug campaign, and Rihanna Johnson is now partnering up with the Red Ribbon Campaign, the nation's largest and oldest drug awareness campaign, as we mentioned, so that she can get more awareness out. Good to see you.
Right. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Great to see you.
A lot of people remember you from September being on the big screen for Miss America.
Yes.
How was your experience there?
It was wonderful. I still talk to a lot of the girls that I competed with, and actually Miss Kansas looks a little bit like you. So when I was watching you from across the room, I was like, oh, I miss her. She was my roommate. So we're all very
like
dear
10 years younger than me. So. Thank you. Good. So we had an instant connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. That's great.
So it was a great experience, and you spend your entire year working for a platform. A lot of people think, you know, we joke about the wave and things like that. They think that's what you do, but really you do some really great social work in the community.
Absolutely. It's so much more than just the beauty pageant aspect of it. I do a lot of public speaking, a lot of advocacy, and partnering with different organizations like Children's Miracle Network Hospitals is one of our national organizations that we work with. But me personally, I've chosen, you know, my brother's story to really go out and combat this wide issue that we're having across the country of substance abuse.
Well, I give you a lot of credit because I think it's the kind of thing that would not be easy to talk about, and for some families it can be embarrassing, but I do think that by talking about it, you help in reducing the stigma about substance abuse as well as suicide. So tell us a little bit about him. Do you know some of the history of why he became addicted to methamphetamines or how that came to be?
You know, we don't know a lot about it. My mom says hindsight is 20/20. So Tyler graduated high school in May of 2005, ended his life in August of 2005. So it was probably within that time that he started using methamphetamine, abusing the drug, became addicted, and then it became a slippery slope downhill from there. And
so quickly, too.
Very quickly, very quickly. And we can look back at pictures now and see the changes. And my mom can look back at memories of conversations that she had had with him and can recognize the changes after, you know,
what kind of changes? Because I think people listening will say, well, looking back, you know, hindsight, like you said, is 20/20. Well, what can they look for right now in a loved one that may signal an addiction?
Behavioral changes is huge. Lack of interest in activities that they used to love doing, change in friends, drop in grades. Poor hygiene was one that we saw in my brother in pictures. You know, we saw this healthy, handsome boy when he graduated high school, and less than 3 months later, lack of hygiene. He had lost weight. His eyes were sunken in, breakouts in his skin. So a lot of those physical changes you can see as well, but not all addicts experience the same kind of physical changes. So being educated on what to look for is really important.
Definitely. What have you found as you go out and you share this story with other people? I bet you hear from a lot of people who are experiencing some of the same problems.
I do, and that's exactly why I chose to focus on the family aspect of it, because years ago when I first started talking about Tyler, I was like, you know, I want to prevent this from happening, I want to create awareness, and it was exhausting. And what I kept getting from students, the feedback that I was receiving was that they've experienced it too, and so many of them have their own personal stories to share, and I was like, you know what, it would be so much more helpful for me to talk about the impact on family, because I'm not an expert on substance abuse. I don't claim to be, but what I know is how my family was impacted and the daily struggle that we still face 9 years later after losing my brother.
So what's your message to families and to other, you know, siblings and parents and grandparents?
I'd say awareness is so key. You know, being aware of what's in our communities and how to talk to kids and youth in our communities about substance abuse, and really talking about it in realistic ways, having those realistic ongoing conversations, teachable moments, if you will, those opportunities to talk about what you're seeing in the news, what you're hearing about at school. It's important just to keep those lines of communication open and that trust, the ability for those kids to then go to their parents if they are having issues.
Well, and I feel like on the show when we've had people on who have come out the other side of substance abuse, a lot of them were not your typical kid who you would think would get into drugs or alcohol or things like that. They were good students, they were good athletes, they were popular, and that's not always who you identify as someone who would get involved. Is that typical as well, what you say to families, or is there is no maybe typical?
Well, you always hear, this could never happen to me. People saying that, people thinking that. But I will tell you that, you know, my family has always been very supportive of each other. I've got 5 siblings that are younger than me. So we're all very involved in our own activities and things. And I never imagined that I would be the student in high school walking down the hall, past the wall of, you know, the memorial wall of those kids, their faces up there, the students that we had lost in our school, and my brother's picture was up there. Never did I think that would be me. And there's such a negative stigma involved in that, and I did feel a lot of shame. So that really that's a problem, and that's an issue that so many families face, that lack of ability to go out and talk about this with other people and be open about the issues that they're seeing happen with their kids, with their family members. It's very, very disheartening.
And I think it's not a wise assumption to think, oh, this couldn't happen to me or this couldn't happen to our family, just like you said. And I think it's wonderful that you're sharing your platform. I know that you were crowned in June, so thankfully we've got a whole nother more than half year to enjoy you, and for you to go around speaking and sharing this.
And people can book you, right? At
fantastic.
School?
Yes, absolutely. I want to be in the schools, and I want to be speaking to these students and talking about what happened to Tyler, and I always adjust it. So if I'm talking to elementary school students, it's really important to make positive choices and set goals for yourself. I talk about competing for Miss Wisconsin 4 times. It took me 4 times to become Miss Wisconsin. You know, so setting those goals and really pursuing them. And then once I get into middle school and high school, I can talk more about, you know, Tyler's story and the devastation that it caused my family.
Good for you for not giving up too and going for it 4 times. I think that's an awesome story to share. So if you'd like to book Miss Wisconsin or find out more about how you can have her speak to your group, you can visit this website. It's misswisconsin.com. You can find out more about Tyler's legacy and that mission by going to tylerslegacy.org. And the Red Ribbon campaign and Red Ribbon Week is redribbon.org to find out more about that. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.